Good morning. It's 10 o'clock, so we will start the meeting. Welcome to the First Place and Resources Overview Committee. This follows the changes to the committee structure at full council on the 3rd of September. I believe we've all used the online system many times before, so we're not going through the processes, other than to say the main agenda items. I will come to each individual member of the committees for their input and questions. When that happens, if you could please introduce yourself when speaking in the first instance. Thank you. Item 1 on the agenda is apologies. Do we have any apologies, Lindsay?
No, Chairman, no apologies for absence.
Thank you. I will make one comment. Councillor Batstone will be leaving at 10:30 and may be back, but we're unsure of that at the moment. Thank you. Item 2 on the agenda is the minutes of the former scrutiny committees. These are actually for information only and are not for purpose of confirming, because obviously they were committees previous to this new structure. Item 3 on the agenda is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? I hear none. In the interest of openness and transparency, I will mention that I am a dog owner, and I do obviously walk my dog on many of the beaches in the Dorset Council area. Moving to item 4, the chairman's update. I've added the terms of reference to our papers just to get an understanding what the overview committee will be looking at. And this split between overview, review and scrutiny is the first time it's happened at this council. Overview, we're mainly looking at processes and policies. Quite an interesting area of work. I will make reference to item V(i), the very last one on our terms of reference, which gives us the ability to look at anything that affects the area's inhabitants. So it's really free rein to look at anything, and of course other bodies external to the council. I simply want to inform members at this stage that all chairs and vice chairs of both scrutiny and overview will be meeting informally on a regular basis to discuss our work plans and actually make those divisions to the multiple work plans we have at present, and look how we're going to operate this new system moving forward. I was also going to mention member training requirements. I did send out an email prior to this, just to sort of get members thinking about what they may want to do as far as training is concerned in the future. I don't know whether any members wish to raise anything now, but certainly send me emails and let me know what your wishes will be in the future. That will be fine. But are there any members wishing to speak on training issues? No, I hear none. The only other thing I was going to mention is our policy library. Our policy library has basically been an amalgamation of all the 6 previous councils, and it needs a huge amount of work. And it's something I think we will need to be looking at very closely in the future. Okay, moving on. Item 5 is public participation. We have 3 statements. Lindsay?
Okay, so the first statement received is from, Lyme Regis Town Council. Lyme Regis Town Council is resolved that the Town Council takes all opportunities available to express its wish to see a dog ban on the front beach all year round. The Town Council is extremely proud of the front beaches in Lyme Regis, particularly the smaller sandy front beach, and believe they should be enjoyed by members of the public without dogs present all year round. Dogs can be walked along the parade on a lead or on other beaches either side of the town where there is no restriction, which are within easy walking distance of the front beaches. Events where dogs have attacked children on the beach and defecated/urinated on the beach and belongings have informed the Town Council's view. The shoulder months of April (Easter term) and October (half term) need particular consideration when setting any dates. On a sunny day in those months, the beaches in Lyme Regis fill up with children building sandcastles, which are often then urinated on by dogs. As the Pearl of Dorset, we want to live up to that title and trust you will take our view into account when formulating the future PSPO to keep our front beaches clean and safe.
Thank you. Go to the next statement, please.
The next statement is from Lorna Jenkin. I have only experience of conditions pertaining to dogs on the beaches of Lyme Regis, not the rest of West Dorset. I am content with your proposal as far as the front beach and harbour are concerned. However, I would hope that you will continue to allow dogs off leads on beaches to the east, brackets Church Beach and to the boundary with Charmouth, and also continue to allow dogs off leads on Monmouth Beach all year round. I walk these areas frequently and there does not appear to be any conflict by allowing people to exercise themselves and their dogs in these areas.
Thank you, Lindsay. Oh,
sorry, that not yet. There's a little bit more for that one. However, it is important to have the area of Front Beach, Sandy Beach and the harbour where families with young children, open brackets, and adults fearful of dogs, close brackets, may play and exercise without risk of stepping in dog feces or meeting a dog not on a lead. I have an adult grandson with special needs who is terrified of energetic dogs, and small children can be overwhelmed with meeting a dog which towers over them or appears unfriendly or undisciplined. You will need to have more helpful signage alerting dog owners to the existence of dog-friendly beaches. Thank you for your deliberations.
Thanks, Lindsay. I will just explain that the third statement this morning was not on the original supplement. It did come in time, but it was with our legal team to determine whether it was it should be included. So that's the reason it's coming now. Thank you, Lindsay.
Okay, so the final statement is from Charmouth Parish Council. The proposed recommendations will significantly change the current regulations, contrary to the initial question approved for inclusion in the proposal. West Beach currently has complete dog exclusion from 1st of May to 30th of September. East Beach currently has partial dog exclusion between 10 AM and 6 PM from 1st of July to 31st of August. The survey findings were without clear preference for change. These are the facts and a definitive statement will be issued after the full council meeting on Tuesday the 22nd of September. Many thanks for your consideration.
Thank you. I will just mention that obviously the three statements, they are not questions and therefore do not get replies. The other thing I thought worthy of mention is the fact that I think because of the new committee structures and the new dates, I expected a very, very large number of people asking questions and putting in statements for this morning's meeting. That obviously didn't happen. But I will say they have the opportunity to do so in readiness for the Cabinet meeting on the 6th of October. And there's that further opportunity at that stage. Thanks. Item 6, dog-related public space protection orders. Members of the committee have been sent previous scrutiny committee papers to give them some background for today's item. They've all had the papers in time to actually read them, and I'll take it that they have read them. Depending on the member requirements to move between maps and recommendations to projects, this is a very, very clunky system, and you really will have to bear with us if you're calling for a map. Please be very clear what page number and where that map is if you do call for a map. The report summarises the findings from a dog-related public space protection order consultation, which actually was over 15 weeks, undertaken between January and May 2020. Informed by the consultation, it proposes a draft dog-related public space protection order to replace the consolidated and existing public space protection order and bylaws to the council area for a period of 3 years. It looks to provide some generic restrictions across public open spaces to aid clarity, understanding, signage and enforcement. A single dog-related public space protection order will make it far easier for residents and visitors to appreciate the provisions in force in our area. The public space protection order must be fair, it must be proportionate and consistent with the principles related to public safety. and public health to enable dog owners and non-dog owners to enjoy our public spaces. When looking at the costs, they will be minimal. There will be some signage changes. The climate implications are minimal. A quality impact assessment is Appendix D, which I think is important, and that's just a outline EQAIA, which needs to be fleshed up in readiness for the Cabinet. I would also mention the consultation had a huge level of participation, 8,600 responses, which is one of the best I can ever remember. It included good representation between ages, dog owners and non-dog owners. 25 parish councils also responses, and we thank everybody for that input. The Kennel Club response was attached at Appendix B, as is the Guide Dogs for the Blind and Assistance Dogs UK, which again members have had. The committee is now asked to consider the proposed provisions for inclusion in that order and the officer recommendation in each case. I will also point out that enforcement falls into another area of concern. It's not for this committee at this stage. Previous scrutiny committees have been looking at enforcement and hopefully will continue to do so. So for the report, we go to Graham Duggan, who's Head of Community and Public Protection. Graham.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, committee. That was a comprehensive introduction, so I don't think I've got too much to add to what the Chairman has said, but I will make a couple of points if I can. There are various current orders and controls from the predecessor district and borough councils that are either coming to an end or have been extended already. So we do need to address this issue, and we do need to replace these current orders with a single Dorset Council order. This will be the first dog-related order for Dorset Council, and officers have sought to consolidate the existing provisions where possible, rather than to significantly change them. And the principle behind that is to look to achieve greater consistency across the area of Dorset Council. The suggested provisions look to strike a balance between public health and safety, and also the welfare of dogs and dog owners. Members of committee will be aware that dog issues can be polarising, and wherever possible, we've sought to strike an appropriate balance. As the Chairman said, we had a fantastic response to the public consultation, and I'd like to offer my thanks to Mark Simons, the consultation officer, who pulled the report together. It was a task and a half. Some suggestions that were received throughout the consultation, officers will explore in readiness for the review that will take place within 3 years of the order that goes forward at this time. There have been some suggestions about the position of dog exercise areas on beaches, for example, and to explore those further, we will need greater time, and we will look to come back to those matters when this order is reviewed in the future. So I think those are the comments that I wanted to make, and I'll pass back to the Chairman at this point. And I think we'll probably then work through the recommendations for each of the provisions in turn. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. That is the process. Are there any questions to the officer from the committee? I hear none.
Yes, please. One quick question, Chair.
Yes, Councillor Fry.
Can I congratulate Graham, Mark Simons, and all the team on the consultation? Really good and nice to get so many people taking part in this participation in this thing. A couple of things. Did the survey go out to vets and in the area, and did it go to the RSPCA? Thank you.
Could I ask Jane Williams, who's on the at the meeting this morning, to answer that question, please, Chair?
Jane, are you on?
I am on. Good morning, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me here today. There was extensive consultation with many people. I'm having difficulty opening my files this morning, and I've got IT working on it to be able to give you a specific response to that. From memory, I did contact a number of veterinaries via a general list that I sent out. I certainly did contact the RSPCA. They are a very important consultee to this.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you, Chair. One more question from Carol Jones, please. Councillor Carol Jones.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you very much. I'm just wondering, are there any figures to show how many dog owners we actually have in Dorset? I've looked and Googled, I can't find it. I can find the national average, but I can't find Dorset. Is that something we might have?
Graham, your response. I can't imagine we have, to be honest, because I know the companion animal ownership has gone up significantly in the last year. Graham?
Yes, I can't answer that question, I'm afraid, Councillor. I guess you could make an extrapolation from the national percentages, but I can't think immediately that we would have that information to hand, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Carol. Thank you.
Don't worry.
Any other members wishing to question the officer?
Chair, do you see the question in the...
I have seen Councillor Hope's response. Yes, Councillor Hope.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. My more of a statement or than a question to the officer. First of all, congratulations to everyone involved in this consultation. Probably one of the most successful consultations we've seen since our formation at Dorset Council. And it's fantastic to see the spread of responses we've got from across the county. Particularly, I'm pleased to see the high level of responses from Weymouth as an area that I cover. One key item that I've had raised to my attention is the signage. I noticed that the paper has made note to the financial impact being to additional signage, but we need to really consider that signage to make it clear and transparent which legislations and orders are in that area. And I would like to see some use of visual mapping in those areas. So, for example, the Nove Gardens, I noticed there was a statement in here around the sort of order would cover some areas, but not because of the classification of the land up there. So I'd really like to see with our orders clear signage, mapping, colour coding, and items such as that to say this is what we can do and what we can't do in these areas, just so there's no ambiguity and it's clear for users in that area where they can go without dogs on running around them off leads, and obviously where dog owners can exercise their dogs on and off leads in those specific areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I should imagine, Graham, if you want to respond to that, because I presume we will be in liaison with all the parish and town councils, just what signage is required in those areas.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Hope, for the question or the comment. It's a really important issue. We need to have clear signage, both written signage and visuals in pictorials as well. And we officers will be working in close conjunction with the town and parish councils to look at what the best signage will be within those areas. We're very keen to get the messages out from this public space protection order as clearly as we can, so that dog owners and non-dog owners know the status of the land that they're using.
Thank you, Graham. Members, please, we finished with the questions to officers. Are there any general comments to the paper?
Councillor Carol Jones has a question for you.
Councillor Jones.
So it was really speaking to the wider point, but I have actually just got one thing I'm not sure about. Where you have a beach such as Studland, which is run by the National Trust, does the council have the ability to put orders on beaches that they don't necessarily look after themselves? I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure of the legality there.
Okay, I believe they do, because I've got one in my patch with Charmouth who own the beaches who've asked to become part of the public space protection.
So the National Trust have to abide by.
If we just hang on, Graham, we've got any facts to this?
Yes, that's quite correct, Chair and Councillor Jones. The the local authority has the power to place a public space protection order on public land, and that's to an extent irrespective of the ownership of that land. So the fact that the beach is owned by, for example, the National Trust, the local authority still is able to declare a PSPO on that land as it's public land.
All right, thank you. Just let us know when we can come in and talk to the general do's and whys and wheres and whatever. I don't want to take over, Darryl.
No, that was the that was the request. Then I'm open to any comments on the paper. So right. Councillor Jones, if you'd like to fire away first.
Thank you. I thought that the Kennel Club representation was really very good, and it was very balanced. And I think it's really important to take a very balanced view on this, because if we suddenly say there's no dogs pretty much anywhere, we're going to have an uproar with anybody that owns dogs. And apparently it's 24% of adults own dogs, and there's 9.9 million dogs in the UK, but that's across the UK. Looking at the first statement from Lyme Regis, what it actually seemed to be saying is that they didn't like the idea of dogs on beaches because there were people there. But a lot of dog walkers will walk early in the morning, they'll walk late in the evening, and I don't personally think there's any reason to have a complete exclusion when probably for most of the year there are no people on beaches. There are certainly no people on beaches at 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning and at 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night. So I just want to make sure we are really balanced, but what we also do is to ensure that where dogs are allowed out, there are plenty of dog poo bins, because this is the real problem, I think, is where there are not the bins and people will, well, you just see what they do with their black bags. Most responsible dog owners will pick up after the dogs, most, I know not all, but then props with better signage and maybe the visibility of a dog warden occasionally on the hotspot areas. But I really don't want to see a complete ban on all beaches. I just think that would be dreadfully unfair, and I couldn't possibly be in favour of that.
Well, I think we have.
I'll stop now, Darryl.
No, that's excellent. Thank you, Carol. Always a pleasure to have input. No, I did look at the Kennel Club thing. One thing that struck me, which they did recommend, is the consideration of dog owners' use even in the exclusion zones in the early hours. They did mention 6 to 8, whatever, when the only people on the beach are dog owners, to be fair. So that was something I was going to mention in general. The signage we've already spoke about, and I think that's up to us and the town and parish councils to get right, as is the bins. I mean, most of the bins on a lot of the seafront locations are, you can put the dog poo in there, so that's pretty much covered. Yeah, thank you for that. We have a question from Councillor Andrew Starr, please. Thank you, Councillor Starr.
Thank you, Chair. I think the issue, as I recall, with the beaches being open at times when there's not people there, is will they get cleaned before there are people arrive on the beach? That's the problem. I think it came up at the last meeting, didn't it? Thank you.
It did come up at scrutiny. Yes, it did. Yes, thank you. We've also got Councillor Taylor.
Yep. Hello there. Yeah, thanks, Darryl. Just coming on the fining aspect, what we're looking at, we've always put these £100 fines on the stickers or whatever they are. Is there a way of enforcing it strictly that when someone's dog does do its business on the beach, they could be either corrected to citizen's event, arrest, or something like that, so they could actually get the payment signed? What do you think?
I'll have to go to Graham for that one, because I know the abuse that enforcement officers get now, so for a member of the public to attempt that, I think there will be an issue. So Graham, have you got an answer to that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think members of the public need to always have their own safety paramount in these situations. Sure. I know that enforcement is a concern to committee members and is shared by officers as well. We will be looking to see how we can improve our resource in this area over the coming months. And we are also working with some town councils at the moment to share enforcement responsibilities as well, so that we have more boots on the ground. I think where we look for public support is for the public to tell us where there are repeat locations of fouling and problems, so that we can get our enforcement officers focused on those right areas rather than the public taking action themselves.
Could we put a phone number on the signs to say where you can ring?
That's a good suggestion, and we'll certainly look at that. Yes,
that would be really good, because I think when they've got ways of doing it, they'll actually do it, and we can clear up this mess that's everywhere. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Are
Chair,
there any other members?
Chair,
Yes,
a quick question. I
Councillor.
think you said that education or enforcement will be another matter, but I think that certainly one thing I'd like to see being taken in this is education and awareness, and whether the officers are going to carry out an awareness of sessions going around with different community groups to make them aware of this order if or when it comes in, and the measures on it, because dogs fouling is very unpleasant for everybody concerned. I'm particularly concerned about people walking around on the beaches, but more so those leisure areas, football pitches, rugby pitches. Yeah. That is particularly unpleasant, and having had boys that have played on particularly rugby pitches, and before you start playing, you've got to go and clear up the poo on the pitch. That's very unpleasant. So awareness and education has to be key and fundamental to what we do.
Absolutely. I think probably a social media campaign will be useful. So we probably need to speak to comms to get that working. But yeah, good point. Are there any general questions to the paper before we move to 1.9 at page 10, which are our recommendations?
Chair, Councillor Ryan Hope's got a question.
Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm glad Councillor Fry's just brought up about education. It's something I brought up at the previous committee about working with our local dog groups and vets and so on about education on some of this stuff. Talking more so about a specific area, if I may. So part of the consultation was the Rodwell Trail in Weymouth, where there didn't seem to be any overall preference whether or not the PPSO should cover that location. I would actually personally like to see that removed with no order in that location, and want to ask the officer on why that's still included, or whether he thinks it could be removed.
Thank you. I presume, Graham, this will go to Jane.
Yes, please, Chair. If I could just say make one quick comment before you pass across to Jane. Mm-hmm. I think in the public consultation results, there was no strong preference either way, and so what we've looked to do as officers is to maintain the current conditions that are imposed on the Rodwell Trail with respect to dogs on leads. The Rodwell Trail is a very well used trail, and it is quite narrow, and we have had representation from a number of sources in terms of maintaining public safety on the trail, particularly with cyclists. And so I think what we've sought to do is to strike that balance between the various types of users that you do get on the Rodwell Trail. Jane may have some further comment that she'd like to add.
Thank you, Graham. Jane?
I agree with what Graham's just said. Cycling seems to be a well-used area, but also this area is used quite a lot by young mums and people moving to and from the town, whether with or without a dog. Fouling is a bit of a problem on the Rodwell Trail. Certainly Weymouth Town Council's Parks and Gardens people that cleanse that area and mow that area to try and assist to keeping it nice and tidy, would want to not be churning up feces in their mowers, etc., and strimmers. So this is one of the reasons why we'd like to see it as a dogs on leads area. You're more likely to see your dog foul and therefore pick up after it if it's on a short lead, unlike either an extended lead or no lead at all. And that's why we're recommending it.
Thank you.
Chair, Brian Hope would like to come back on that one.
Councillor Hope.
Yeah, thank you for the response. I think any responsible dog owner, whether it was on the lead or not, would monitor where their dog is and still hopefully pick up the feces. And that's where the education element would come in, about monitoring your dog still when it's off a lead and picking up because of the health effects of dog feces. One of my main reasons for this is although it's in the current order, is areas change all the time. And Weymouth continues to lose open space due to building, mainly an area in Weymouth, Curtis Fields, which is heavily used by dog owners at the moment, which phase 2 of development is about to begin, meaning dog owners have less area in that area to actually exercise their dogs off leads. So that's a reason for change. Is just because it's always been there, it doesn't mean we should continue, because the area around that area is changing. With reducing areas that dogs can be exercised off leads. And I know that actually the leads create more hazard to cyclists driving, riding down the Rodwell Trail and bits and pieces. And again, that's where clear signage in all these areas around share usage, where cyclists are as well with dogs, I believe needs to be looked at.
Yeah, understand your concerns, Councillor Hope. I would say with the dogs on leads issues, we're obviously looking at the restriction to 2 metre lengths. I know they cause problems with cyclists and public with wander leads, which are up to 10 metres long. That is an issue. But one of the recommendations we have today is to restrict those leads to 2 metres. I think that will make an awfully big difference.
Yeah. Chair, we've got a question from Councillor Carol Jones, followed by Councillor David Taylor, please.
Councillor Jones, thank you.
Sorry, me again, sorry. I just wanted to tell you of an action that I saw that I thought could work so well here. If we find an area that is being a bit abused in terms of dog messing, when I was in Cornwall with my dog, sorry, I didn't declare I have dogs too, as we were about to start a nature trail with the dog, somebody approached us with a t-shirt saying dog friendly or whatever, but they were handing out little poo bags and they had a little bag of dog treats and say, oh hi, really thank you for coming to this area, thank you for bringing your dog, it's a wonderful, they'll have a wonderful life, can I just please ask you use this and pick up after your dog? And then she said you can give your dog a treat if you're able to do so. And everybody took that so well. It was a really nice approach. Nobody took offence to that and nobody messed. And I think perhaps and I'm pretty sure we would find some dog owners who would actually volunteer to do that type of work in certain areas, perhaps one day a month or at a busy time. I think it's worth a shot, and I don't think we should, disregard that approach.
No. That's excellent. Thank you, Carol. Yeah, some sort of ambassadorial role will be useful. And again, it's probably something with the education and the social media campaign we can look at. We have now got Councillor David Taylor.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi, Darren. Thank you very much. Just to emphasise with this debate, the thing I raised at the first council meeting when I became elected first district council was the fact I partially lost my eyesight completely for about 2 weeks because of toxoplasmosis, which is in feces. So therefore there's an indication of health and danger, what it can do to children and adults. It really does make you go blind. It really does. And the second bit was I had a text from Nick Ireland, which is a really good one. He said you could have a scannable QR code on the signs to take you to the relevant web page to report dog issues. Good one.
Yeah, that's good. Good point. Good point. I would say with the Otis toxicaria, I did actually contact some of the medical people and ask what the incident numbers were in Dorset and if they could attribute any of them to beaches. They couldn't, which is quite interesting. I don't think. I mean, it's fairly rare, to be fair.
Yeah. Oh, it is rare. Yeah, it's rare.
Yeah.
Chair Roland Tarr, Councillor Roland Tarr is next.
Thank you, Councillor Tarr.
Just wanted to say, with reference to the Rodwell Trail, I quite regularly cycle down it, and dogs are a real problem when you're cycling and people have got dogs out of control. It's really dangerous and it gets quite crowded at times, especially in the summer and at weekends. So I think that's something to be taken into account with having dogs running around on the Rodwell Trail.
Thank you.
Chair, can I just add, I think there's lots of positive comments here, but I think the vast majority of the dog owners are generally well respected, they do their job, they're responsible. It's the minority, like all things, it's speeding cars, seat belts and everything. It's the minority that we're dealing with who don't pick up their feces, who don't keep their dogs under control. And I think that's where this order is important.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just having a quick look at anybody who hasn't spoken. Councillor Apothecary, have you got anything to add?
Chair, you're showing gestures now in a minute.
Sorry, Chairman. Actually, I'm listening intently. I don't actually have a dog, and I think I live about as far away from a beach as you can get. So although whilst I'm very involved in this discussion, I don't really have a personal view, and will take my lead really from the consultation that we've carried out, which, as you've already said, we've had an excellent response from. And I don't feel this is an area of expertise for me personally.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Val. Councillor Jesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're talking about signage and education. Can I absolutely emphasise that if we're talking about signage and education for multi-use spaces like trailways, that applies every bit as much to the cyclists, because I understand that the cyclists find dogs a nuisance. My goodness me, we dog owners find cyclists a nuisance. It's a shared space, and it is not a priority space for cyclists just because they're going faster. So I would put in a plea, please, for good signage that acknowledges that if we've allowed the dogs to be there, then it is the responsibility of the cyclist to take care not to run over the dogs, not just the responsibility of the dog owners. Thank you.
Thank you. That's excellent. Yeah, that's very, very good point made as well.
Chair,
as
go on. Sorry.
Yeah, go on. As Councillor Fry did mention just now, there is a minority that causes the issues. I think both the cyclists and dog owners, the vast majority are pretty well behaved. Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much again, Chair. A couple of things to come back on. You just picked up on Councillor Fry's comments. It's a minority, and I think we need to remember that in this paper and not criminalise and penalise every dog owner for the actions of a minority. And I know you said enforcement isn't the aim of this discussion today, but that's where we do need good enforcement and investment in our dog services and the signage to report. Picking back up on previous comments just made around the dog friendly groups, we're lucky in Weymouth, we do have that. They go out, they get bags sponsored, they put the bags in holders, and they engage and work with local businesses, and it's absolutely fantastic the work they do. So just take this opportunity to actually thank them. As well, signage we've mentioned, but absolutely agree in the shared usage. Just because the bikes are there, they go faster. It doesn't give them a preference, because actually I get just as many complaints about cyclists on the Rodwell Trail than I do any other user. So we do need a balanced mind, and I would say the work we're doing here on this paper today is good, but it's the actual enforcement that comes off the back of this to say whether or not it's actually needed in all of these areas, because at the moment it's very difficult, because we don't have the data there from the enforcement due to the lack of enforcement officers.
Yeah, as you're aware, when we started looking at enforcement and scrutiny, we're looking at each area the council enforces as individual enforcement officers. And I think the end result would have been to look at whether we can multitask those enforcement officers, because if they're on the ground looking at a parking issue, they might just as well be on the ground looking at a dog issue. But that's something that I'm sure Councillor Bartlett has picked up on, and we'll continue in the scrutiny committee. And as I said, we're meeting informally, so we will discuss that anyway. But you're right, enforcement is extremely important. Okay, if everybody's content, we will move now to page 10 and 1.9 and the first of our recommendations. It will appear on our screen shortly. There we go. 1.9 little a, the clearance of this. I've got to confess, some of these, to my mind, are absolute no-brainers, and we'll take them as such. I think clearance of dog fouling and appropriate disposal from public open spaces. It is recommended for inclusion that this should happen. Are there any dissenters? I hear none. That is carried. Little b is a maximum length of 2 meters where required on dogs leads References on page 15 of the consultation. That is recommended for inclusion. Again, are there any dissenters to that? Here's somebody coming.
Yes, Chair. Councillor Ryan Hope dissenting.
Councillor Hope.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. I dissent from this because I don't believe there should be a maximum on there, and because I know some dogs that aren't allowed off leads because they're not trained and they should be able to exercise freely. And I believe that the 2 metre length as a maximum is a hazard to some areas, as we heard from multi-use areas.
Okay, understood. Councillor Jesperson.
I beg your pardon, Chairman. Yes, I would like to dissent from this. I think 2 metres sounds a random number because it very much depends on the size of the dog. If you've got a very, very little dog, as I have, then 2 metres is not very long at all because one of the meters is from between my hand and her neck. So I think it's a random number. I think it's unhelpful. I think that there's no need for it. If dogs are on leads, then they're being kept under control, and you need to keep a big, rough dog under very close control, and a smaller dog might need 2.5 or 3 meters before she can even be running around. So I would absolutely dissent from this. I think it's unhelpful and unnecessary.
Okay.
Can I speak in support of the 2 meters, please? 2 meters, I think, is a sensible length. The vast majority of leads are about 1.3 to 1.5 leads, whatever the size of your dog. We're really talking about the extendable leads on, shall we say, West Bay seafront or Weymouth seafront, where the people are walking along with tiggy poos on a lead that's about 12 foot away from them, tripping up other people, taking their ankles out with the lead, and the dog's been running around, tripping them up. This is a safety thing. I think here is a really good example of where the measure is in place and it is only enforced when there becomes a problem, or if somebody's taken down and tripped up, and then enforcement. If you're on your own walking along the beachfront and there's no spectators around or no other pedestrians, and you've got your dog at 3 meters, who's going to make a complaint in the first place? This is a common sense issue that will keep everybody safe and only be used if there's a problem or a complaint about a particular persistent offender.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Fry. I have to agree. Because we have dissenters there, I think we will go through a formal vote on this one. I will start off with, I would recommend this for inclusion. Councillor Fry, you obviously will as well.
I'll support it.
Councillor Batstone, have you gone? Yeah, I believe Councillor Batstone must have gone to her appointment. Councillor Hope?
Against.
Against. Councillor Jesperson?
Against, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Jones?
For.
Councillor Apothecary?
For.
Councillor Starr?
For.
Councillor Tarr?
For.
And Councillor Taylor?
For.
That is carried and will be recommended for inclusion. Thank you. Moving on to C. Dogs on leads is directed by an authorised officer. Lead length 2 meters. Again, because the B has been voted for inclusion, I can't see any reason why C should not be. But are there any dissenters for the inclusion of C?
Sorry, Darryl, I don't understand how C is different from B.
B is basically when directed by an authorised officer. As much as where Les was talking about the fact that if you're the only individual on a beach with a 3 meter length, who's going to enforce it? But when an officer actually comes up to you and says, please reduce your lead to whatever, it's just a case of supporting that officer and his right to do so.
Okay, I think it's so similar to B. I just don't see the difference. But okay, thank you.
So are there any dissenters for C? No. I hear none, so we move on. That's recommended for inclusion. D. Dogs on leads, generic locations, all roadways and footways in areas of vehicle speeds limits up to and including 30 miles per hour. Are there any dissenters to this? So you should keep your dogs on leads when you're in those generic locations.
Chair, could I comment here, please?
Yep.
This is actually not recommended for inclusion. This was a provision in the Weymouth and Portland public space protection order, and it was the only such provision in the new Dorset Council area. And was thought to be quite an onerous requirement. Officers thought we either needed to make this a requirement across the whole of the Dorset Council area, or remove it from the Weymouth and Portland Council area. There are other provisions connected to road safety which address this type of issue. So what we're looking to do here is to not extend this provision across the whole of the Dorset Council area and remove it from the Weymouth and Portland area.
Yeah, thank you, Graham. I think the Highways Act covers a lot of these sort of issues anyway, doesn't it?
It does.
So the recommendation is not for inclusion. Are there any dissenters? I hear none, so that will not be included. The next part of, I'm trying to scroll down the page, and somebody else is of course doing it for me. Can we go?
The municipal sandwiches, is that included, Chair? Is that separate?
Yeah, can we go back up to D? Now, as we were, let's just hold the page there. Yeah, municipal cemeteries for inclusion. Again, I think a no-brainer. Are there any dissenters? So that is recommended for inclusion. Public formal gardens.
Well, Chair,
yeah.
Can I just check? I think Councillor Ryan, are you dissenting?
I am dissenting. Yes, Chair.
So this is to the cemeteries, church, and graveyards.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Are there any other?
Happy to explain why, if you wish, Chair.
Yeah, far away.
So again, I think these areas could be classed as open spaces. Whilst I understand why they're there and to lay people to rest, they are an open space, and I think they should be a multi-use area, and people should be able to enjoy them. Also for walks and exercise. So for that reason, I dissent.
Thank you for that. I very much disagree, I have to confess. Are there any other dissenters?
Councillor Jesperson's got a question, Chair. Is this for Leeds or excluded on the churches, on the cemeteries?
And I haven't got the paperwork on another screen, Mr. Chairman, and it's flicking by. And so can I just clarify, are we talking here in this section about dogs on leads or dogs excluded?
This was dogs on, I can't get the page up. Can we go back to the original?
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Yeah, dogs on leads, generic locations. So
right.
All these are dogs on leads.
Thank you, thank you.
So not banned, but no. If we go back to the cemeteries section again, there we are. So yeah, dogs on leads in cemeteries, churches and graveyards.
Then
so again,
I'm happy with that.
Thank you. Councillor Hope, can I just ask you that question again then? Because it's on leads, so that's not excluding them from those areas, but controlling them when they're in those areas.
Yeah, no, I agree. You know, my local cemetery on my doorstep has very wide footpaths, meaning a dog could be off a lead in there quite easily without running wild. And again, I think it's up to individual dog owners to control their dog, and if they can allow their dog to walk sensibly through there by their hills, like I know quite a lot of dog owners have their dogs under control, I don't think they should be forced to have them on leads.
So you're still dissenting. Okay, that's fine. Are there any others? So if members are content, we will recommend that for inclusion by majority. Thank you. Public formal gardens. Dogs on leads. Recommended for inclusion. Are there any dissenters?
Chair, I would remind people this is we're dealing with the minority of people whose dogs are not well behaved, who do not have them under control, and as was very said at the start of this meeting, are likely to go off and have a poo somewhere without being seen, and that's not very nice in those formal gardens. So although I'm sympathetic to Councillor Hope's views and comments, we're looking at the minority here.
We certainly are. So are there any dissenters to the public space, the public formal gardens recommended for inclusion?
Chair, Councillor Sherry Jesperson would like to speak, please.
Yep, Councillor Jesperson.
Just to respond to what my good friend Councillor Fry has just said, the flip side of that is what we are doing here is putting in some very formal and in my view fairly draconian measures in order to deal with the minority, and therefore curtailing the very reasonable activities of the vast majority of people who would never let their dogs foul anyway. So I do think I just need to say that to balance this, that what Councillor Fry's just said, that we are putting these things in place, but they will apply to everybody, not just the minority. And we need to be mindful of that, because we don't want to cast the council in the role of the old-fashioned park keeper. You know, you can't do that there here. This is all quite uncomfortable for me, that we're curtailing the activities of reasonable people because of the activities of unreasonable people. Having said that, I absolutely see where we're going with this, and that was not a opposition. It was just a word of balance.
Yeah, thank you, Sherry, for that. I'm of much the same opinion. I think I'm a reasonable person and a reasonable dog owner, and I do keep my dog on the leash while he's going through our gardens, formal gardens. So going back to that recommendation for inclusion, are there any dissenters? No, then we'll take that as recommended for inclusion. Council-owned allotments where permitted. It's recommended for inclusion. Are there any dissenters to council-owned allotments?
Sorry, Darryl, where you say where permitted, is that you allow dogs there? What I'm not sure what you mean by where permitted.
This is on leads again. It's all part of the same section. Whether they should be controlled on leads while in council-owned allotments. I'm not absolutely sure where the where permitted comes from, but it's basically should they be on leads when they are in council-owned allotments.
Chair, you might want to clarify that with the officer to find out where the difference between where permitted means. Does that mean that some councils may allow and some may not? Or
yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah. Graham, have you got any comments?
Hello, Chairman. Yes, I think the meaning here is that there are some council allotments where dogs are not permitted at all. So it's where dogs are permitted within allotments to have them on lead.
That makes sense now you've said it. Thank you. Okay, any dissenters to this one? I hear none, so we will recommend that for inclusion. Council-owned car parks. Are there any dissenters? I hear none, so that will be recommended for inclusion. Within 5 meters of marked sports pitches.
Chair, this is one I actively support. I know that these are big, wide open areas and we have them across the whole of Dorset area. But to see dogs fouling on a pitch where young people are going to be playing sports, falling on their faces, falling over, as Councillor Taylor's already said, it's a massive health risk to all our people in there. So I actively support and second this one.
Thank you. I certainly would support it. Sorry, was that a comment from? No, anybody dissent to this one?
I'll just say I support it.
Thank you, David. So that is recommended for inclusion. Dogs on leads specific. This is E. Now moving to E. Dogs on leads specific locations as referenced on page 35, and we come to the Rodwell Trail. So dogs on leads, Rodwell Trail. We know we've got one dissenter. Are there any others? If there are not, then that is recommended for inclusion by majority. West Bay Harbourside and Esplanade is recommended for inclusion. Are there any dissenters?
Sorry, Darryl, Is that 24 hours a day? Because that seems a little bit over the top. Can we put timings in there?
Yes, it's possible if it's got support from the committee that we could. I mean, this has obviously got to go to Cabinet following our recommendations to Cabinet.
Yeah,
so
I'm sorry, I don't really know that area, so I don't know if it's an area where dogs can exercise on or not. I'm not familiar with that area, so I would, if it's an area where they can run and have fun, then I would like to see it timed. But if it's just more or less,
I mean, the Esplanade, you can walk along with your dog at any time. I mean, I've been there myself quite a bit, so you can walk on the Esplanade. On the beaches, obviously, it would be restricted to the timings proposed. The monthly timings.
Chairman, Councillor Starr, I see it says it's a current requirement anyways.
It's a current requirement,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
So, no, I see no reason to change it.
So we go back. Timings are the only issue. Is I mean, the Kennel Club did mention timings with view of the excluded periods. I think it will be difficult to enforce, to be honest, if I was honest, even though I'd like to see it. I think the enforcement of that sort of issue will be difficult.
Mr. Chairman, these are what we're looking at the screen now. These are principally the roads and car parks and access routes on the way to the beaches, aren't they? Where there
yes, pretty much.
There could indeed be traffic. I would have it's absolute common sense that a dog would be on a lead in any of these places, it seems to me. Until you get to the beach, your dog would be on a lead. I think I would agree with Councillor Jones about the timings on the beach itself, but these are the roads leading up to the beach, and I can't imagine any circumstance where you wouldn't have your dog on a lead in these places.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, we can actually refer to the mapping if you wish to, but you need to give me a page number and a map to go to. But it is quite clear within the papers. There's two sets of maps for each area, one for the beaches, one for the Esplanades.
Chair, I support these as well. Bearing in mind that we've got roads nearby there, if we're going to allow people in these areas with dogs off leads, there is a risk to highway as well in itself. I know that some owners will argue that their dog is really well behaved 100%, but I would question that if a tempting article was to run past or be attractive, they would be gone.
Yes, I know it well. So these are the walks and Esplanades leading up to beaches. So West Bay Harbour, recommended for inclusion. Are there any dissenters? No, then that is included. Lyme Regis pathways adjacent to the front beach. Again, is a current requirement. Are there any dissenters? No, that is included. Weymouth Esplanade, recommended for inclusion. It is a current requirement. Any dissenters? I hear none, so that is recommended for inclusion. Swanage, the parade and adjacent roads leading to the beach, recommended for inclusion. Are there any dissenters? Then that is included. Studland, access to South Beach and car park, is a current requirement and is recommended for inclusion. Are there any dissenters? No, that is included. Studland Shell Beach, 58 supported. It is recommended no change made to current position, and it is recommended for inclusion. Are there any dissenters? The Studland Shell Beach.
Yes, I dissent to that.
Sorry, who was that?
Carol.
Oh, Carol.
Sorry, I don't think we should be not allowing dogs on beaches at all. That's just not. I don't think that's right.
Okay, we have one dissenter. Are there any others?
Just to be clear, this is a recommendation for dogs to be on leads all the time on Shell Beach, because
Studland, I don't know the beach, to be fair.
Because we were talking about the roads up to the beaches. Now we're talking about this appears to be in the wrong section. This appears to be the actual beach, and all the rest in this section has been the area, the roads around the beach, which I'm very comfortable with. But
do you wish to move to the map so we can see which area we're talking about?
Could we? Yes, because
Yep.
This isn't all that clear to me that we're talking about the beach or the access to the beach, in which case I've not got a problem.
Chair, it's Graham Duggan. Could I ask Jane Williams to comment as well, because my understanding this is the access ways to the beach, and perhaps it's not worded as well as it should be.
That's why I think the map would be useful. Can we move to the Studland Shell Beach map, please?
Chair, Councillor Val Pothery has a question. I'm not sure if it's related to this particular matter.
Well, we'll move into that map if we can find that, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I think that would be helpful. I have the same issue as Councillor Jesperson regarding whether it is actually Shell Beach or the land leading to Shell Beach.
I think it's the access to. Jane, would you like to comment while we're trying to get to that map?
Certainly, I'm just getting the map up myself in front of me. I think it's the actual beach itself. It was a request by the landowner and Natural England. Landowner is actual National Trust. I do apologise for that mistake in the context. But you'll see once once the map comes up, which I believe is page 57 in my documents. It will be thereabouts. Sorry, it depends how you print these off as to where it seems to appear. So that's Shell Bay, Shell Beach in front of you, and
Can we move that map up a fraction?
So there's the roadway right the way up through the middle, which is the first part of the question, and the second part of the question, because we were keeping all the dogs on leads bits together and trying to do it geographically, which is why you've got this perhaps muddle of access and beaches. So I'm sorry, I'll take that into consideration next time we review this type of report.
Clarify it for cabinet, that'd be useful. So we're talking in this case the road strip through the middle.
So the road strip through the middle was the previous request, because that's Studland access, and then either side of this access is the Shell Beach itself, and it's requested to be dogs on leads throughout the year to protect habitat.
Chair, I don't know whether the ward member for that area, Councillor Cherry Brooks, wants to comment.
Just put a comment in there. Can we go back to the recommendation then, please?
Chairman, did you want me to comment or not?
If you wish to.
Okay, just at the moment there's quite a lot going on around the Studland area, as you would imagine, and there are discussions taking place about what's happening on Ferry Road, which is the main road through. There's currently our legal department is looking into who actually owns it, but the ferry company believe that they own it. The land on either side is owned by the National Trust, which was just clarified. So it would have to be in two stages for any recommendations, and perhaps I know that a lot of people use Studland because it is such a long beach. They use it early morning and late afternoons to let their dogs sort of run around, and I've never had anybody report to me that it is that it's a concern to them, but I understand that maybe Natural England put in a request for them to be on the leads because of the habitats, because they're trying to rewild the area. Obviously, they're wanting to control dogs rooting out some of the sand lizards and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Cherry.
Chair, you've got Councillor Roland Tyre wanting to speak next, please.
Councillor Tyre.
Yes, what I wanted to say was that the National Trust and the Natural England have their own bylaws, as does the ferry company, but the protection of the species on that reserve, it's a world famous reserve. It's the only reserve with all the the 6 British reptiles on it, and because reptiles are quite unusual in Britain compared with the continent or anywhere else, and it is very important that dogs don't go into the wildlife area, and that's why they're very keen on that. They have their own bylaws, which I would suspect, well, to cover that, and that's the reason they've requested it. I think we should accede to their request. If people let their dogs run on the beach, as everybody says, it's not going to be a major problem if they stay on the beach. It's when they go off into the scrubland, it is a major problem for wildlife. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Starr. Councillor Starr, do you want to speak? No.
My apologies, Chair. I'm still slightly confused as it says that the land is owned by Natural England, and they have expressed a view to dogs to be on the lead. Surely they don't. They don't surely want the dogs on the beach at all. Is that right? Are we talking about the beach or the access road?
The access road was above. This is the beach, isn't it? Jane, could you clarify?
This is related to the beach itself, and Natural England specifically said that they wanted to ensure dogs were on a lead in this area, as they have been previously, to protect habitat. So I apologise if I repeat that again.
No, thank you for that.
Isn't it? It's a national trust, surely, not Natural England.
That
is correct.
That was corrected earlier.
Could we just be clear?
I presume the reason being, as Councillor Tarr said, that on the beach is one thing, but they don't want them going into the scrubland where you get breeding species.
The National Trust are the landowners, and the Nature Conservancy, what it's called, Wildlife England, are the leaseholders, if you like, of the scrubland of the reserve.
Oh, okay, we've got that. Now
the beach didn't come out because the ownership of beaches in this country is quite complicated. The
recommendation then is against. If we just finish, the recommendation is against the 58% who supported no restriction, and that's the question I think we've got to answer: whether the committee works with the consultation, in which 58% supported no restriction, or we take the view of the National Trust. Are there any other comments?
Chair, Councillor Val Potherick got a question.
Councillor Potherick.
Thank you. I very much would like to support the 58% that have asked for no restriction. Having said that, I think we could have a restriction from, say, 9 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock, and leave Shell Beach particularly for early morning and evening dog walkers. I know it's a favourite spot. It's actually a beach I know quite well. I think the hinterland of Shell Beach isn't as protected as the other side of the road, which leads into Arn and Ridge, which is where all the species are. So that would be my preference. I would recommend it not for inclusion.
Thank you.
Chair, Councillor Jones.
Thank you.
Sorry, I really don't see why, if it's the scrubland, sort of the bits as you go up towards the downs that have the wildlife, you would just simply be able to signpost that no dogs beyond this point. That's what they do in other areas. So I too will support the 58% that supported no restriction, because I think you can signpost this quite easily.
Thank you. Councillor Tarr.
Yeah, well, what I would say about that is that if you obviously know Studland very well, there are probably at least 100 access points to that reserve, and so a dog can run in anywhere. So it wouldn't be practical to start putting notices up on every access to that reserve. It's a very wild area. It'd be very complicated to control. So I want to support the National Trust and Nature Conservancy.
Councillor Starr.
Thank you, Chair. I can't see any difference between supporting this motion and putting signs up saying that they can't go into the scrub, because that's basically what the motion is saying. If they must be on the lead and on the beach. And when it comes to restricting the times they can go, that's if you're protecting wildlife, the times doesn't matter, does it? But 58% want no restriction at all. If you have no restriction and then put the signs up, it's another restriction.
Okay, understood. Councillor Haynes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for letting me speak on this one. I actually worked in that area at a field study centre for a number of years, and I think it really is important. I would support Councillor Tarr that actually the bit that takes you to the beach, where it's great for dogs to run, the dogs should be kept on a lead, because I can assure you that most of the species of wildlife that he is talking about is available in that little bit of hinterland between the road and getting through the sand dunes to the beach. So I think I normally would go with what the public have put, but in this particular case, I think it's really important that we have some clarity and we put on leads in that area, and then they can go off lead when they're on the beach proper.
Thank you. Councillor Jesperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I would agree with what Councillor Haynes has just said. I know this beach very well, and I walk my dog there. Now, you keep your dog at the moment. You keep your dog on a lead, and there's a big sign that's very easy to follow. You keep your dog on a lead until you reach the beach. So all through the paths coming to it and all across the scrubland, your dog is not allowed, and you can keep your dog from where you park your car. If you walk down to the beach, it's on a lead. Then you can not let it off the lead until you get to the beach. I have to say it's extremely easy to understand the difference between the beach, which looks like a long yellow sandy thing, and the scrubland, which looks entirely different and has a kind of fence across. It's not a fence that would prevent anybody going through, but it's a clear marker. And I think any intelligent dog person who's driven all that way to walk their dog is perfectly capable of understanding the signage that says you may run your dog on the beach, but you absolutely have to keep it out of the scrubland. I think we're making an absolute mountain out of something very sensible. I'm also very uncomfortable with ignoring the majority view from the consultation. We take the majority view when it's draconian and we ignore it when it's not. And I think we should go with the public's 58% that they've said no restriction on the beach, but absolutely dogs on the lead in all the access to the beach, including the car park, and no access to the scrubland.
Thank you. Councillor Hope.
He no longer wishes to speak, Chair.
All right, see you spotted, yep. Okay, moving back to this one then, we've got basically the division is whether we support the consultation, 58%, or we don't. Currently,
Chair, does that need rewording? Does that recommendation need?
I'm just looking at that now, Les. Yeah, to be honest, I'd probably ask for some sort of recommendation from somebody who knows the beach. Would any member who knows that beach well like to put forward a recommendation? I mean, at the moment, we're saying recommendation is not included. So what's the alternative? Because something's going to have to go to Cabinet.
So, Councillor Jesperson would like to speak, Chair.
Councillor Jesperson.
Okay, I think that what this recommendation might usefully say is that we support dogs on a lead in all the area of Studland, excluding the beach. So that includes the car park and the nature reserve and the pathways leading up to the beach, and that we support dogs not on the lead on the beach, so no restriction on the beach, as decided by the National Trust, because the National Trust already restricts on that beach during the season.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm content with that. Are any members wishing to speak against that motion? Can I just check, Lindsay, have we captured that?
Chair, can I suggest that we leave the actual wording to the officers, but the tone of the message we want to put is on access roads and entry to the beach is on leads, and on the beach is no restrictions.
I think that's fair enough comment. We've got this recorded anyway, so the officers can go back to this. So yeah, Are all members content that that new recommendation is moved forward to Cabinet?
I would still prefer to stick with the original recommended for inclusion.
Okay, we have one dissenter. Are there any others?
I agree with Councillor Tarr.
So there's two dissenters. Three dissenters. Are there any others?
Thank you.
Chairman, is it worth just doing a vote like you did in the first one where there was not clarity, and therefore we will be very clear?
Yeah, I was just about to go on to that, Lindsay, because of the issues. But we have no words to see. That's all. If members are content, we move the motion put forward by Councillor Dispersion. I will go through the list again, including myself, and I will vote for that amended recommendation. Councillor Fry.
For.
Councillor Batstone's not with us yet, is she? No. Councillor Hope.
For.
Councillor Dispersion.
For.
Councillor Jones.
For.
Councillor Pothecary.
For.
Councillor Starr.
Against.
Councillor Tarr.
Against.
Councillor Taylor.
Against.
So that new motion is carried.
Okay.
Right. Charmouth Lower Sea Lane car parks and surrounding areas leading to the beach, recommended for inclusion. Are there any dissenters? Then that is recommended for inclusion. Charmouth Beach area. To either side of the proposed beach inclusion area is not recommended for inclusion. Are there any dissenters?
Chair, can I just comment? Is that not going to make it confusing when the whole idea of this order is to get some consistency across Dorset with similar orders on all beaches?
Well, this is not recommended for inclusion, so it is to include the same restrictions. That's the way I read it. Anyway, Graham, can you just confirm?
This is, thank you, Chair. This is for dogs to be off lead, so no requirement for dogs to be on leads on these areas leading to the main beaches.
Councillor Jessamine would like to speak on this one, please, Chair.
Councillor Jesperson.
Just to say that our beaches are all massively different. There's no comparison between the town beach in Swanage and Weymouth and Studland. So I think any suggestion that we're going to have the same regulation for all beaches is, I would say, that was very unwise, and that I couldn't see any logic in that at all, because the beaches are very different.
Thank you.
Chair, could I just quickly come back in on that?
Yeah.
I think Councillor Jesperson is correct. I mean, the beaches are very different in each of the localities, and that's why when you move further down the report, the beaches are dealt with separately, because we do have to take account of local circumstances.
Thank you. This one actually talks about 58% supported, no restrictions, even though is not recommended for inclusion. So are members content that is not recommended for inclusion?
Yes.
Any dissenters? I hear none, so that is not recommended for inclusion. F, we move on to dog exclusion areas, generic, and again it's this is exclusion areas for dogs. Marked sport pitches and recreational areas recommended for inclusion. Are there any dissenters? I hear none, so that is recommended for inclusion. Enclosed children play areas recommended for inclusion. Are there any dissenters? I hear none, so that is recommended for inclusion. G is beach restrictions. References on page 71 of the consultation document. Harmonisation of the beach exclusion period. There was significant support for the dates given, which are the 1st of May to the 30th of September, which is the shortest exclusion period.
Chair, Councillor Carl Jones would like to speak, please.
Councillor Jones.
Whilst I am okay with May to September, I think we should time it to something like after 9 AM and before 6 PM, so that the beaches are open before and after those times on all beaches. That's what I would like to see. I think a blanket ban 24 hours a day is silly.
Chair, Councillor Ryan Hope would like to speak, please.
Councillor Hope.
Yeah, thank you very much. I disagree with the Times proposals. I don't know how many of these beaches actually carry blue flag awards, but I know Weymouth does, for example. The issue is if the dog fouls and it's not cleaned up, or if the dog has, let's say, a funny tummy and it cannot be cleaned up completely and traces of the feces remain, then the beaches could lose their awards. These awards are very important to some of our beaches, as they put our towns in good marketing areas for tourism, which then impact on income and generation through the seasonal time. So I wouldn't support a timed exclusion within hours for that very reason.
Thank you, Councillor Hope. I think we need to agree or not agree to a timing type issue before we move on with this one. Would members, I mean, actually this was raised at the scrutiny committee when we looked at the consultation. I did raise the timers issues myself, but here and now, would members wish for time periods where dogs are allowed in the excluded areas to be included? We'll leave that first of all before we look at any timings. Are there any I don't want dissenters, do we? Are members content with including timings? And I think I'll go through the list again.
Chair, Jane Williams would like to speak, I believe.
Jane.
I'm very sorry to interrupt you, but I do have something on the blue flag. In order to comply with the blue flag criteria, dogs must be excluded from the award area and bathing water during the bathing season, which in England is between the 15th of May and the 30th of September inclusive. It's a really important fact or factor for those that do carry a blue flag.
And those wishing to obtain one, I presume, as well.
Indeed.
Yep, thank you very much.
Additionally to that, we didn't pose questions regarding timing in the consultation. So if we haven't asked for members of the public to put their point of view forward, I do believe we could be beyond the remit of the Public Space Protection Order inclusions. We must consult on any major changes.
Okay, Jane, thank you very much for that. That clarifies that issue. I've got Councillor Gisperson.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I'm absolutely fine with the having no time when they are allowed, and I think that would be detrimental to our blue flags and also quite confusing. My question is, though, given that the bathing season as defined by blue flags is 15th of May to 15th of September, why are we going 1st of May to 30th of September? And just remind me, was the 15th to the 15th one of the options offered in our consultation?
Thank you, Sherry. Jane, was it offered in our consultation?
It wasn't, but the actual bathing season is 15th of May to the 30th of September. Sorry for that correction, Councillor.
Okay, I just wonder why we are going further than we need on this. Yet again, it's my concern that we're being just seems disproportionate that we went to the 1st of May when the bathing season is the 15th of May. But I've made my point, and I appreciate that we didn't include that in the consultation, so there's probably nowhere to go with that.
And I think we did give a number of options for dates within the consultation. Again, the highest level of support went to the 1st of May to the 30th of September. So I think we should. But
it might have been supported even more if we'd offered the 15th of May, which we didn't. But
yes, understood. We didn't. Right. Are there any dissenters for recommendation for this inclusion? I think with everything that's been explained, I think it's fairly straightforward. So that is recommended for inclusion. Swanage Central Beach. Somebody let somebody in. Swanage Central Beach. Continued exclusion in current areas was supported by 60% overall residents. It is recommended that dogs are excluded from this beach between the 1st of May and 3rd of September and may be exercised off leads at other times. That's pretty much the same, isn't it, really, to be honest? There is no recommendation underneath that. Charmouth Beaches, 855 responders, recommended to include East Beach under East Cliff between the 1st of May and 3rd of September. Lyme Regis.
Sorry, Chairman, just to come back on these last ones, I think the recommendations are those wording underneath the initial parts. So for Swanage, I think the recommendation says it is recommended that dogs are excluded from this beach between 1st of May and 30th of September and may be exercised off lead at other times. So I think that is the recommendation that you're either supporting or not.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, I'm just going to take them all on bulk, but yeah. Okay, if you want, so Swanage Central Beach, recommendation 1st of May, 3rd of September may be exercised off leads at other times. Are there any dissenters? Then that is included. Charmouth Beaches, recommended to include East Beach under Evans Cliff as an exclusion area between 1st of May and 3rd of September, with dogs exercised off lead at all other times. West Beach to have no restrictions. Are there any dissenters?
Chairman, sorry, it's Graham Duggan. Could I just come in there? Could I just ask Jane Williams, who's at the meeting, whether did Charmouth Parish Council make a representation about?
They did, Graham, and it was read out at the start of the meeting on their statements.
Okay.
So members are aware of that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So that is the recommendation in front of us. Are there any dissenters? Then that is included, thank you. Lyme Regis Front Beach. Recommend that dogs are excluded from the beach between the 1st of May and 30th of September and on leads at all other times. Are there any dissenters? Then that is included. Chiddock Seatown Beach. Now, Jane, there was, if I remember, correct me, there was an error in this one. Could you just explain that error?
Sorry, I had a problem with my mute button then, I do beg your pardon. So no majority for exclusion, 56% in favour of off-lead restriction, and that was originally only in the summer period. It's not at all other times. Sorry, the other way around.
Yep, fine.
So it only had a summer restriction.
So the recommendation stands as.
So the recommendation is not different from what they already have in place.
Okay, thank you very much. So it is recommended that dogs are excluded from the beach between the 1st of May and the 3rd of September. Are there any dissenters? No, then that is included. Studland Beach. It's recommended that as currently there will be no exclusion periods, but dogs should be on leads at all times. I think that covered some of the stuff we were talking about earlier. Are there any dissenters?
Sorry, Daryl, are we still talking May to September here, or are we saying all the time here?
As currently, there will be no exclusion period, but dogs should be on leads at all times, so no exclusion period.
Because all the signs at Studland say between May and September, so that's also lots and lots of dog walkers go there before and after May and September. So can you just clarify that?
Well, it is what it says. There will be no exclusion period, but this must be from the consultation results. But Jane, would you like to comment on that one?
I'm just bringing up the report in front of me. So
this links very much into that sort of new recommendation we talked about earlier.
Indeed it does, yes. It's the same sort of, it goes into that part of land which is on the peninsula leading to the ferry areas. So
so does that earlier recommendation encompass this area?
No.
Mr. Chairman, can I
can we just let the officer finish, Jane?
Sorry, beg your pardon.
So I'm sorry, I've got office background, so I do apologise. So this is the beach that we talked about the access to in our dogs on leads discussions, but now we're talking about the actual beach area leading off that area. So there was a 70% request that dogs should be excluded from this area.
Hello, Chair. It's Graham Duggan. My understanding here is that we're still relating to the times between May and September. So this recommendation is that dogs will be on lead at all times between May and September.
This is not very clear, is it? It clearly says there will be no exclusion period, but dogs shall be on leads at all times. So
Mr.
which
Chairman,
is it? Yes, Sherry,
could I help here? It's been a while because of lockdown. It's been a while since I've been to Studland, but it has always been the case that dogs were not allowed on the beach at all between May and September, or whatever the dates were. Just as with any other beach, so Studland Beach is exactly the same as I'm sure that's right, as other beaches, but that there was no restriction outside of. So where it says there is currently requirement for dogs on leads at all times, that I don't think that's correct, because my understanding is there's not. So I think there's some confusion here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I think Councillor Jones was making the same point. And this directly contradicts my resolution that we just passed, which is that there would not be restriction at all times on the beach.
I think your previous motion actually cover this as well?
It did, yes.
It seems to, doesn't it?
What I said, though we've left it to officers to tidy it up, but that we would be on lead at all times in the area around the beach, including the scrubland where the wildlife is, but no restrictions on the beach. But we can now add in that we should have restrictions on the beach if they've asked for it in the summer months.
Yeah, the same period. So
yes.
Can we?
Could I make a comment, please, Councillor Turner? It's Janet Moore here, Service Manager.
Yes, Janet.
It says in the consultation report, the existing order stipulates dogs are to be on a lead on the beach and access points during the summer months. There is currently no prohibition of dogs on the beach, so there is no exclusion at the moment.
Yes, that's.
But we are asking on the previous motion to include May to September, are we not?
No, we didn't say that. I'm just saying we could now if that's what people have voted for. But I think we're in danger now of going even further than the consultation asked for. The consultation appears to be, according to what Janet's just said, is that we're on the beach on a lead between May and September, and on the beach with no restriction, i.e. not on a lead, outside of May and September.
Okay.
And if that's what it is now and they've asked for it to remain the same, then I don't think we should be going further than that.
Then I'm more than happy to support that. Are there any other dissenters on what Councillor Jesperson has just said? Then
could that be reworded a bit, Darryl, though? Could officers reword that to make that clear that we don't get shafted on that later down the line?
Yeah, I think if once the officers have put that piece of recommendation together, if it comes out electronically to members, just so we can clarify that, we can do that, just so it's clear when it goes to cabinet, because you have obviously this next stage. But I think that's in fact I will make a note of that now. Right, okay, moving on then. West Bay Beach and West Beach. Recommended that dogs are excluded from East and West beaches between 1st May and 3rd September and may be exercised off lead at all other times. Are there any dissenters? Then that is included, thank you. Weymouth Central and Green Hill beaches. Recommend that dogs are excluded from the beach between 1st May and 3rd September and may be exercised off lead at all other times. Is there anybody wish to speak to this? Are there any dissenters? Then that is included, thank you.
Chair, Councillor Ryan Hope would like to speak, please.
Councillor Hope, I did wonder.
You could have guessed, Chair, couldn't you?
I was waiting.
Just to say, I fully support the change in the time period of the restrictions. Previously, we've been longer than this, and we did have a good presentation by a fellow councillor on Weymouth Town Council, Councillor Wakeling, picturing the beach towards the end of the original period, showing it deserted. So I believe this will be favourable to reduce the time and support some of our beach and seafront businesses in the winter months now, with the dog walkers being able to use the land, all the land without restrictions. Thank you.
So thank you very much for that. There were no dissenters, so that will be included. Is that the last one? Footnote, yes. Yeah, we just can go through the response. So that's concluded that part of the agenda. Thanks everybody for the input to that. It was useful, especially as a lot of us don't know the areas. We move to item 7, which is our draft forward plan. Now, this actual plan contains items that are scheduled and not scheduled, and most of them have yet to be determined which committee it will go to. It may be scrutiny, it may be overview, and in some cases it may be both. So there's lots of work to do on this yet. We've also got to look at methods of looking at these items, maybe inquiry days, maybe committee meetings, we don't know. There's a lot of work to go into this. The danger, and I always state this danger because it's exactly the same as scrutiny, that we dilute the effectiveness of the committee by trying to do too much. It's absolutely key we take bite-sized chunks where we can make a real difference to the public and take those issues forward. And it's something we'll be looking at very closely in these informal meetings when we start to populate this. I think the Centre for, no, it's not public scrutiny anymore, it's the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny, do say that it's best that you do less and you do it well. I think that's got to be our method of working moving forward. I'm looking for members' ideas and for future subjects. And again, we can input on that electronically after the meeting now, if you wish. And that's how we're going to move this forward. I think we've got Councillor Hope. You want to speak on this? Do you wish to add any items?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I did email Lindsay this morning requesting a scrutiny request form, because I would like us to, I don't know if it fits within this committee or one of the others, but scrutinise sort of roadside cleaning and highways. My area, we're lucky, we about 2 years ago had the majority of the highway resurfaced with the coating. However, we're already starting to see deterioration in that because of the roads, weeds on the curbsides coming out. As far as I'm aware of some of the investigation I've already done, there's no joint up thinking about how spraying, removal of weeds and gully cleaning is done. And I think we should be looking at this, because I think we can actually make our communities a better place by proactively going out and clearing roadsides. And it also then prevents us having to go out and clean gullies if we were to clean it, because the waste from the roadsides wouldn't end up in the gullies. So it's a subject I would like us to consider, either at this committee or another committee, scrutinising how that surface is done to look at improvements.
Yeah, thanks, Carla. I'm pretty sure highways sits somewhere in that plan. I was looking desperately at the chat box for Cherry Brooks to pop her head up. Cherry has been fighting this corner for some time now. She's obviously a lead member looking at highways. The idea was to be more proactive, which costs money, but I think it saves money in the long run. So I think I absolutely agree with you. There is a method of doing all of this. No, desperately looking through, but I will certainly include highways. That's not a problem, and I'm sure it will come forward anyway. Highways. Councillor Jones.
Thank you. Looking up further up, you had some things on licensing and gambling. We've got a perfectly good licensing committee. I really don't understand why we would have to look at that as well as licensing, basically. I mean, it's a good committee and it works, and I'd rather we concentrated our areas on things that perhaps other agencies, other departments are not. And one such area, and I don't really know if that will come under this remit, is I'm particularly concerned about the lack of grid capacity all throughout Dorset, which basically means we can't, I mean, for example, in some areas it's just impossible. You cannot have an electric vehicle charging point because it costs too much electricity to get into the area. We can't put new industrial units on because we have no grid capacity. Is that something we can pick up and make some noise about, or is that outside of our remit?
No, and anything that affects members of our communities is in our remit. So we can certainly have a look at that, and we probably, in fact, there will be hopefully a scoping document for any of all these ideas, much as we have the scrutiny committee. So that's the sort of thing we'd fill in and get officers to comment on. I think that's I did look at the licensing and the gambling policies. Because they are policies, they probably do need overview. And there's particularly one part of the licensing policy I am really interested in, and that's the late night levies. And I think what we're saying at the moment is not right, but that's for discussion at another time. So I think to come to overview is probably the best place for it.
Okay.
I really do. So gambling and licensing, I was going to mention that is on our October meeting already, so that's always part of the forward plan. We have now got Council Chairperson. Sherry, are you there? No, we'll move on to Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, just to emphasise this, the highways and things that are having problems, because I've just managed to get the main road by Stratton, where there's a railway bridge, where we've had fatalities and accidents, probably one every 2 months, and the things that they are now finding out the gullies are blocked and everything's not been cleaned for years. I mean, absolute years. And water flows over there every time the river goes up, goes over the road, so that they get car crashed quite often. So yeah, we do need to look at our highways and really give it a good look at it.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Cherry's actually put something in the comments box.
Yeah,
that we're currently looking to invest to save, and I think that's what it's all about. There will be an initial cost to any of this proactive work we should be doing, but I think on the long term we will be saving. She's also giving you the opportunity to speak offline about that, David. So that's somewhere for that to go.
I'm back, Mr. Chairman. I beg your pardon. Oh,
that's right, Councillor. Just
ringing all over the place. The first point I have to say, I think it will become. I'm hoping it will become clearer over the coming months what is scrutiny and what is overview, because it's not immediately clear at this point. But I expect we'll get the hang of that. One of the things that I would like to see on our agenda very firmly is, of course, the draft local plan. This is probably the biggest bit of policy that Dorset Council is going to make anytime soon, and it's absolutely bang smack in the middle of our area of responsibility. And I think we should set aside a period of time to look at that very, very thoroughly, because it is absolutely our responsibility to be overviewing that particular piece of policy before it goes to cabinet, and in good time before it goes to cabinet, so that we can, if we make recommendations, there is time for them to be made before they go to policy. Thank you.
Absolutely agree with that, Sherry. Really, really important. However, there's also a monitoring role for us as well moving forward. So we're making sure what's been put in the local plan is actually happening on the ground. I've got a request to speak from Jonathan Mayer.
Chairman, thank you very much. It was just to contribute something on this distinction between overview work and scrutiny. And I think several councillors have spoken about wanting to scrutinise issues relating to the highway. If you're wanting to develop new policy in relation to highways and aspects of how we manage the highways, that's absolutely a matter, I think, Chairman, for your committee. If members are wanting to scrutinise how effective the council is in managing highways and operating within its existing policies, that's a matter for the other committee, for the scrutiny committee.
Thank you, Jonathan.
I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you very much. And of course, we always have the option of a joint committee as well. So there's lots of options and different ways of working moving forward. Okay, part of this review we do on the old committees have always included looking at the cabinet forward plan, looking at their cabinet decisions and eventually cabinet decisions of a year ago, just to see what impact they've had and on those decisions have had on ways and means of operating going forward. Now, cabinet forward plan, can we move to that please on the paper? Just could you just hold there? One thing I was going to mention, there are a long list of current EAPs. We're yet to decide, I think, who is looking at whether the EAPs continue, whether some of that work may well come to the overview or scrutiny committees. So that's, again, it's an area of work we need to look at and make decisions on. Thank you. Can we just move to the cabinet forward plan?
Chairman, just for the purpose of the person producing the meeting, you go back to the agenda front pages and find the item for the committee work plan. There is a link within that item to the cabinet forward plan. It's not attached as a physical document.
Yeah, no, yeah, should have mentioned that, Lindsay, my fault. I actually download all of these, and on my other laptop next to me of all these documents there, members do want to actually go through those and look at them. I've made some notes on the various documents, and if we look at the cabinet forward plan, I've got not much to comment about. Have any other members looked at that and got any items they'd like to raise? No. Okay, cabinet decisions, 8th of September. Again, it's a link to the document. I always find it easy to download them. It's up to members how they work through that. It talks about the corporate procurement strategy was adopted, and that might be a subject for future overview, see how procurement is working. And it also talks about the extension of the low carbon Dorset programme, which was made, which is exceptionally good news. They've worked, low carbon Dorset has done a lot of really good work for reducing CO2 emissions throughout Dorset, and it continues to do so with that extension.
Chair, did you see Councillor
Flower's
comments?
Councillor Flower, at the end of the meeting. Okay, thank you. We're having problems bringing these documents up apparently, but they would normally be on the screen. Any member comments on the 8th of September? No. Moving to the 28th of July, we saw the climate and ecological emergency strategy was approved. Again, moving forward. And we've looked at consultation with the public now, moving forward, following the development of a costed delivery plan. The delivery plan, the basic baseline costs are there. It's just got to be actually trimmed up a bit and tidied up. So that's moving forward. And of course, we had the budget quarter one report. Again, whether the Audit and Governance Committee are going to be looking at that or us, not sure as yet. Any member comments on the 28th of July? No. 30th of June, Cabinet decisions, licensing gambling policies approved consultation. Again, it's something we will look at in the future once those results come back. Any comment on the 30th of June Cabinet decisions? I've mentioned there from Aidan Dunn about the audit and governance are looking at quarter one next Monday, which solves that problem. The final one, Cabinet decisions, are on the 5th of May. And I've noted the Cabinet Jurassic Coast Partnership Plan was adopted, and that takes us a plan taken from 2020 to 2025, which again is excellent news. They work really closely with us and have done for some years now, and it's a great organisation. And of course, obviously, the funding contribution to that group, Jurassic Coast Trust, is carried forward to the March 2023. It's a very good partnership and it's very good news. Have members got any comments on the papers of the 5th of May? This is the sort of thing I think moving forward we need to interrogate, and again we need to interrogate cabinet decisions of the year prior, so we can look at their impact on both the organisation and the people in our communities. Are there any comments generally about the forward plan and the way we look at these sort of issues from committee members? I hear none.
Chair, Councillor Carol Jones.
Yep, thank you.
Sorry, that's me again. Is that I would rather than looking at what decisions have already been made, that seems to me to be a little bit ridiculous. Can we not look at the recommendation before the Cabinet makes the decision to put our thoughts to? Otherwise, we're just doing something that we can't change anyway, or am I wrong?
No, you're wrong.
Oh, good, lovely, excellent.
A lot of the stuff will actually go through the Cabinet process, and we will look at the decisions they've made and how they've impacted. So looking back is always good. We can look post Cabinet decision. We can pick up stuff, and you know, we've done that today with the dog public space protection order. So we do both. We look at stuff going to Cabinet, we look at stuff coming out of Cabinet, we look at decisions made a year prior to what impact they've actually had, and we can change things. We have the ability to go back to Cabinet and say, we're not very happy with this, have another look, please. So, yeah, it's well within our powers. Right, moving on then on the agenda.
Chair, Councillor Jesperson.
Councillor Jesperson.
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to say that Councillor Jones was just voicing what I was thinking, but I'm hoping I'm referring back to what Jonathan said earlier about the difference between scrutiny and overview, and I think a lot of the things are covered off in scrutiny because that's where they look at how effective decisions made a year ago have turned out to be. And we can focus, I'm hoping, on decisions that are yet to come primarily. So I'm heartily agreeing with both of you.
Excellent. I think, yeah, you're right. Because we're looking at policy and process, it's those policies decisions a year prior just to see how they've impacted are useful. Jonathan.
Yeah, Chairman, it was just to come back on that same point. I think you said at the start of the meeting that we're in new arrangements and we're starting to feel our way a little, and the looking back at what the Cabinet has done, that does feel more in the area of the scrutiny committees, and I think you have got more of that forward-looking role, either developing policy, stepping into policy areas at your own initiative or at the request of the Cabinet. But the bit of looking back and saying, well, how effective have the Cabinet's decisions been? How effective have those policies been when they've come to be implemented? That feels more like scrutiny work. But you've previously commented that you might want to do some of this in a joined up way with the scrutiny committees anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like you say, it's very, very new ground, and we've all got to find our feet with this moving forward. And there will be, I'm sure, arguments to come in the future. Right, just one final thing before I move on to item 8. Councillor Spencer Flower, Leader of the Council, you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. Really just want a couple of things, really. Well, first of all, congratulations to you and the committee. I thought the discussions you had, the debate you had on the dog-related public space protection orders was very good because you've tidied it up. It'll make it an awful lot easier when it gets to Cabinet, for Cabinet to make its decisions. And it demonstrates for me the benefits of both overview and scrutiny on occasions. I think it strengthens the quality of what you get to Cabinet, and then some of it obviously goes to Council. But I think really good piece of work this morning, Darryl. So well done to you and everybody else. Picking up on a couple of things that one that Carol Jones mentioned about a lack of grid power capacity. It's an issue that I've been taking up. She'll be aware of this for some while now through the LEP, because if we're going to have economic development, if we're going to have residential development in Dorset, we could actually do with a bit of power to go with it. and quite a few areas of Dorset are now getting close to the tipping point of not having enough capacity to deal with it and or further development. And that point was made at the local planned EAP the other day, because we can talk about what we're going to do for the next 15 years, but if the power doesn't relate to the increase in need, then we got a bit of a problem. So that's something that obviously we take on board. And the last point, which you touched on earlier about EAPs, there will be probably one or two that will continue, like the local plan one will probably continue through to conclusion. But I think the majority of the others, if they haven't already finished, or in some cases only been 1 or 2 meetings, we might be looking to pass those over to overview to develop the policy work around those particular areas. So as Jonathan said, it starts to then create the dynamics of policy development away from the cabinet and into overview. So I'm optimistic, and I know that you're having conversations with your scrutiny colleagues as well as your colleague who chairs the other overview committee, and I'm absolutely sure that in 2 or 3 months' time, I believe things will settle down, and you will start to, both of you, are developing work prep programs, particularly around, as well as what's going on in the cabinet, but on your own basis. There'll be things that you'll want to look at from a point of view of developing policy. So I'm optimistic about that. But as I say, I finished by saying once again, well done for today. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm sure, like I said, we are very much in its infancy, and this is I think the first one from the changes on the 3rd of September. So it's all about learning and changing and moving forward. Okay.
Chair, you've got a question from Councillor David Taylor and then Roland Tarr, please.
Thank you, Les. Councillor Taylor.
Just like to welcome and congratulate all of this. It's really good news, this, that we're actually getting really involved in it all, and the fact that we are going to be making some serious decisions and things that I just congratulate you as chair and the team that we're going to go forward rightly.
Thank you, David. I will call on you when we get to start looking at working groups and picking off bits of the policy library. I'm sure there's lots of work we could do within working groups moving forward. But
yes.
Thanks for that. And finally then, Councillor Tarr.
I would just like to support what Councillor Flower has said about the LEP, the LEP, that the council should be making the decisions. There should be a democratic input to some of their decisions. But I support that very strongly. I'd also like to thank all the officers who've been helping us right through the year, and particularly on this, the dogs item and the Democratic Services team. Jonathan there's rescued us on a number of occasions during council meetings and at these meetings when we're not quite sure what everybody's talking about, and put us straight. I'd like to support all the officers who've been involved today, especially. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Tarr. We're all in this together. All right, moving on then. Item 8, urgent items. I have none. And item 9, exempt business. We have none. Therefore, I'd like to thank everybody for their input today. It's been really good. And the meeting closes at 11:57. Thank you.